When we get a fever, the first thing we want to do is reach for the over-the-counter drugs. But one thing we might be missing is that we might have a remedy already in our home, and a fever might not be such a bad thing. That's what we're talking about today on View on Health. Nowadays, we're all a little bit on edge when it comes to our health. And when we feel the slightest fever creeping up, we could get very concerned. But today we're going to talk to Richard, the head of research and development from American, who has some natural remedies for fevers and is going to tell us why fevers might not be such a bad thing. So Richard, we feel a fever coming on and we immediately want to reach for acetaminophen or some over-the-counter drug to help reduce that fever as quick as possible. And we're probably feeling a little anxiety given what's going on in the world about even the slightest health concern.
Absolutely.
So can you kind of walk us through why a fever might not be such a bad thing and what we can do naturally to let it run its course?
Well, the first thing I've got to admit, I have actually gone to the store many, many times over my life to pick up an over-the-counter drug to try and cure a fever. But nowadays, knowing what I know, is that's not necessarily the best thing to do. Fevers actually are a good sign. They're fighting something in your body naturally to rid it before you have to go to the store to pick up something. If you should get a fever, I would recommend the first thing that you do is that you hydrate yourself. Drink much more water than you normally would, or maybe you'd like to take a bath and drop in some Epsom salts, a couple cups of Epsom salts, and stay in there for a kid maybe for 20 to 25 minutes, an adult maybe for 30 minutes to an hour.
Wow.
That could help actually detox your body and lower the temperature of your body core.
So what is it about Epsom salt? Because I've heard about Epsom salt. I thought it was more for sports injuries or strained muscles or something like that. So what is it about the Epsom salt that draws out the toxin to help reduce the fever?
Epsom salts are an astringent, and so they're going to pull through your pores all those particular toxins that might be just entering. So you may have a fever, but you may have a worse fever if you don't do that. This is pulling out those toxins so they don't get in, so it could possibly end your fever a little sooner. But there's other things you can do if you have a fever. Wear light clothing to bed, pajamas. Drink bone broth. Bone broth is a very good natural substance for lowering a fever.
And when it comes to bone broth, I see a ton at the store. So does it matter if it's beef bone, chicken bone? Does it matter, or any bone broth will do?
Just about any bone broth will do.
Okay.
The last thing would be what happens in a hospital. What do they give you when you have a fever? They give you ice chips, and they give you plenty of water. And here's a cool thing for kids, popsicles. You can make them up ahead of time and keep them in the refrigerator with fruit juices or just ice. Let them suck on the popsicles, and that will help reduce the body core. But don't be too quick to go to an over-the-counter medication because you may actually reinfect yourself or allow that fever to stay around longer than you really want to.
Right.
Now there's some things you can take to actually lower your fever. You can take olive leaf extract, you can use beta-glucan, you can use apple cider vinegar is a great one. 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar with 2 tablespoons of water, and drink that down.
How many times a day? Because on the bottle I know there's some different doses there. What would you recommend?
Depends on what you're fighting, but 3 times a day would not be bad to do that. Essential oils, ginger oil, peppermint oil. You can use several different types of oils. They'll warm up your system, and while warming up your system, you actually kill bacteria.
And how would you recommend using the essential oils? Like putting them in a diffuser? Is this like a topical thing? What's the best way to get the biggest bang for your buck for those?
Well, some of them you can put right on your skin, but some of them you cannot. Some of them may burn your skin. So a diffuser is a great idea. Some will be very light in their potency, and you can put them right underneath your nose, and your nose will take them in. Again, that helps warm your system and then starts lowering your fever. You can use lavender, thyme, sage, eucalyptus oil is another one that you can use as an essential oil to help rid that fever.
Is there any other lists? So if we're at the grocery store and we get some apple cider vinegar, maybe we already have some essential oils. Is there any bone broth, anything else from the grocery store that we can pick up that can aid us in this?
Absolutely. How about lemon juice and honey? That's been used, for thousands of years as a natural cure. I would like to mention one honey, Manuka honey, which comes from New Zealand, has high medicinal properties. That's because it comes from the tea tree bees that make that particular honey. But there's a caution on how much honey you give a child. You shouldn't give raw honey to a child that's 3 years or younger, because it can actually cause infant botulism. And that's not something that you want to continue with a kid.
Right.
There are some red flag warnings that if you have a fever that's lasting more than 2 or 3 days, that might be a concern for you. Or if a child is having a fever of 100.4, not 104, but 100.4, that would be another concern to go see the healthcare practitioner. Also, if you in your own heart feel that there's something else going on, by all means, go see your healthcare practitioner, especially in this time and day and age. We just don't know what it's going to turn into.
Well, this is really helpful because I think we start to panic when we get a fever, but to know that there's things that we can do on our own to let the fever run its course and do its healing, but we can aid in that naturally, that is really good news. So thank you so much, Richard, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.